So welcome to the mucky brown banks of the River Humber. This is about the most uninspirational place that is local to me, but weather is on its way and well, I didn't fancy driving head on into a rainstorm. So here we are just outside of Paul, which is just outside of Hull, which is on the banks of the River Humber, which is near the Humber Bridge opposite Scunthorpe. Anyway, today we're out celebrating 1 year with my Olympus E-M1 Mark II. And what a year it has been with this camera. It changed my mind about what I thought I needed from a camera. It changed my mind about what I thought I needed from a feature set of a camera. And it also changed my mind about what I thought sensor size meant when it comes to taking photographs. So I'm going to show you some photos that I've taken over the last year with this thing. And we're also going to attempt to take some photographs today with it. It's very grey, it's very overcast, it's very windy, there's no light. So that might be fun. So let's talk about the last 12 months with my Olympus E-M1 Mark II. So I've climbed on top of this old concrete support structure for some old building, and I've decided to lay down because it's probably safer from the wind. Behind me there are a couple of lighthouses, and I always find that this is a great spot just to stand and take a handheld photograph, because I'm not going to do it on a tripod because it'll probably blow over. But that's going to be the first photograph. There is a path leading behind me which you can use as a great leading line, and you get a really big open sky above the lighthouse. So let's grab the E-M1 Mark II out of the bag, try and get everything strapped down safe and secure so it doesn't blow away, and take the first photograph from today's video. Hopefully. So, E-M1 Mark II. Now, what I tend to do if I'm out shooting this time of day, doing this kind of just walking around photography, is I will throw the camera into aperture priority mode. I see no reason to be in full manual mode at this time of day. I'm not on a tripod, I'm not trying to control lighting and weather conditions. I'm just out taking photos, and I always find that aperture priority works quite well for me. I often have the Olympus 12 to 40mm f2.8 Pro lens on this camera. In fact, this lens almost lives exclusively on this camera, and I always find somewhere between f4.5 and 5.6 for this kind of thing. It gives me exactly what I want. It gives me the same depth of field as sort of f11ish on a full frame camera, so it allowed me to get almost front to back sharpness, which I always find works quite well for photographs like this. So let's take this first photograph. So I always like to stand around here when I take this one. It's not the first time I've taken this photograph, I'm not going to lie, but it's always a fun one just to start off with. Now there's two lighthouses back there. I'm going to try and get them both in the frame, and I'm going to use the path, just an S curve leading into the photograph. I'm going to put the white lighthouse on the top right with the first point, and the sky is in the top third. And there we go. There's the first photograph. You can probably see it's a bit breezy. Hopefully it worked all right. So this is my favourite lighthouse of the two of them. I don't know if you can see that. I'll move aside a little bit. I always think of it looking like a minion from Despicable Me. Now, once I say that, you'll probably be able to see it straight away, but I also think of it as having a face. Where the light shines through, there's like a square little I always think of that as a face, and I always try and get the lighthouse looking in towards the frame. I know it's a really silly thing to say about a lighthouse, but that's kind of just how my mind works when it comes to taking photographs of it. This is one of them great little spots just for coming down here and thinking. And as I've been about thinking today, some of the things I want to talk about with this camera. So the feature set on it, it is absolutely incredible. Now, for the longest time, I shot with Canon DSLRs, and I thought they were the bee's knees. And they'll throw 3L lenses on there, and you get all the sharpness, all the resolution. And after picking up this camera, I kind of realised that those aren't the things that are important to me. In fact, big heavy DSLRs and big heavy DSLR lenses, the furthest thing from importance to me now I've had this. It weighs absolutely nothing with this lens on it. I've had lenses for the Canon series that weigh more than this combination, the 16-35 and the 24-105. Them two lenses alone probably weigh more than this setup, and for somebody that does an awful lot of hiking, the weight saving with the Micro Four Thirds cameras and the lenses that I have in the bag, it's been a game-changing, revelationing. It saves my back and my knees, and I don't have the best knees, unfortunately. So the weight-saving side of Micro Four Thirds has been absolutely phenomenal for me. But then we talk about the feature set inside of this thing. When it comes to video, obviously I create videos. This thing does cinema 4K at like 250 megabits per second. This has been shot on a Sony A7R. 24 megabits per second. So the bit rate in this camera is 10 times what you're getting from this setup here that you're watching through. The focus peaking, the ability to see highlight and shadow clipping. These are all things that I didn't realise that I needed until I had them, and I probably couldn't live without them. I like to throw manual lenses on this camera. Now granted, you can do that on the Sony, it does have focus peaking as well. But I've always preferred the way the peaking works on the Olympus. I find it to be a little bit more accurate than any of the other mirrorless cameras that I've owned. My first foray into mirrorless was with a Canon RP, which was probably the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life, because that camera was just goddamn awful and I don't understand why it exists. But as soon as I picked up this thing, everything that I hated about the mirrorless with the Canon, it kind of went out of the window. It kind of blew by the wayside. The EVF on this thing is crystal clear and it's so incredibly sharp. Now, you're looking through an LCD screen, I'll give it that. It's not the same as looking through real life. But all of my gripes with the original mirrorless setup that I had, with the EVF, the tearing, the lag, the noise, the grain and everything, it doesn't seem to be an issue with this camera, and I'm not sure why. But I really do like the EVF inside of this thing, just to look through the viewfinder and just see a real-time exposure and you see the photograph that you're about to take. It really did help me with my photography. The dials on this thing, you've got 3 setupable dials that you can customize to do whatever you want. Nearly every button on this camera is a function button, so you can change it to suit how you shoot. It's incredible. I love the thing. I really do like you. When I bought this camera and started making videos with it roughly a year ago, one of the very first comments I got on one of the videos was, "Say goodbye to ultra wide." Bitch, please, I've got a 6mm lens here, 12mm full frame. It's the widest lens I've ever owned, and I'll tell you what, it's been absolute. I love this wide angle lens. Let's use it. So we've got all of this grass being blown over by the wind, and I thought it made for some quite fun sort of run up to the lighthouse there. So here we go, 6mm, 12mm full frame equivalent, because we don't have ultra wide on Micro Four Thirds apparently. All that we do. So manual focus, everything's red with a focus peaking that I love. In fact, I think we're going to get both lighthouses and the telegraph pole in there, and we'll shoot. There we go. Here's a very un-ultra wide Micro Four Thirds photo, because ultra wide, it just doesn't exist, does it? Apart from that lens there. So this isn't the first time I've been out to this spot with this camera. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I came out here and I took a picture of the northern lights above the lighthouse behind me, which I thought was pretty cool, to capture the northern lights above my own city. And it was taken with a Micro Four Thirds sensor, which apparently, according to the internet, cannot be done at night, which I find to be total BS, because I've done it at night. In fact, I've taken several photographs at night with this camera and had absolutely no problems with it at all. That was one of the first things that I noticed about this camera, was the fact that you can actually photograph in low light with it, despite popular myth and misconception that Micro Four Thirds is fairly useless at night. It turns out it really isn't, and I guess it just kind of depends on the lens that you've got on the front of it. I mean, this lens on here is f/2.8. It's reasonably fast, isn't it? It's not a slow lens by any stretch of the imagination. And I've thrown faster lenses than this on here and had some really nice results with it. So there, you can actually take low light nighttime photographs with a micro four thirds camera. So if it's something that you're looking at into buying, don't be put off by what the forums say about these things at night or in low light situations. So let me talk to you about what I think is probably one of the biggest problems with photography at the moment. And I think it's gear related. Instagram probably has a big role to play in this, because a lot of what you see is full frame, tends to be Sony with G Master lenses, and these people taking these photos, they're incredible photographers. But I think what that instills in people that are picking up photography and picking up the first cameras is that that is the equipment that they need to take some decent photos. And in my opinion, it isn't. You need a camera that you get along with. You need a camera that does what you need it to do, not what everybody else is using. And that's where I landed with the Olympus stuff, with the Micro Four Thirds stuff. It does everything that I need it to do. It may not do what you need it to do. I mean, I gather some of you watching this video probably own this camera, which is why you've landed on this video. But that's because that camera works for you. You don't need to go and buy the latest and greatest camera model because you've seen your favourite YouTuber, your favourite Instagrammer. You're not going to take the photographs that they're going to take. So why not experiment with the camera that you're using and find something that works for you, like I did with this Olympus E-M1 Mark II. This last year, this last 12 months, I've enjoyed my photography so much more because I'm using something that I've set up to work how I need it to do. I know its limitations, I know its strengths, I know its weaknesses, and I'm now able to shoot to those. Instead of running and gunning and going out in all kinds of weather conditions that I know I'm not going to have fun in. So I know this may sound like I'm preaching a little bit about this camera, but it's something I'm very, very passionate about, is people picking up equipment that works for them and not following on with trends or following on with what everybody else is using. Be yourself. Experiment. This for me works fine because I like to do a lot of landscape photography. Now, the smaller sensors tend to give larger depth of fields at equivalent apertures to larger sensors, which works for me. It gives me a little bit more depth of field, it gives me more in focus, more front to back sharpness, and that works for me. Now, I understand that's not going to work for everybody. There are a lot of portrait photographers out there. A full frame lens, a 50mm 1.8, an 85mm 1.4 works fine for those people. And that's great because that works for those. But if you're shooting landscape photography like I do, weather sealed, by the way, a weather sealed body, a weather sealed lens, just throwing that out there. It's not limited to your Canons and your Nikons and your Sonys. It's weather sealed, you know, just saying. It's raining now, so I'm pointing that out. But use something that works for you. Don't just follow on. I mean, I'm preaching about this Micro Four Thirds camera. I'm not entirely suggesting that you should go out and buy this system because it works for me. I mean, I realise that may sound like I'm doing that a little bit, but I'm really, really not. I'm just passionate about the Olympus stuff and the Micro Four Thirds gear because, yeah, like I say, it does work for me. So thank you very much for watching this rambly rabbity video. I'm going to head back to the car now, not because the camera can't take the weather. It's more me. It's windy. It's rainy. I've got a fly at the back of my throat. That was stupid. So thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please do give it a thumbs up and a like. It does help the video and it helps bring new viewers to see my content. And if you liked it more than that, there is a subscribe button below me. You can press that and you'll see more nonsense from me and my Micro Four Thirds camera every single week. So until the next time, I'm going to love you and leave you and just say peace and goodbye.